Back here on CBS Sports HQ, the third set of college football playoff rankings have been released. And right now, the big story, Richard, is the fact that Alabama has fallen 6 spots, going from 4 all the way down to 10 after their loss to Oklahoma. Your reaction is what?
Tumbled, and I didn't think they would go further than 10 because that would mean that they are effectively out of the college football playoff if it were to be played today. Remember, because the 5th highest ranked conference champion projected right now is Tulane, sitting at 24, and then the ACC champion, whoever that may be, I think it's Georgia Tech right now, is the projected leader right now. Georgia Tech would be the 11th seed. So you got to be in the top 10 of the rankings to make the actual dance when we get to Selection Sunday. That's about how it's shaping up right now. So having Bama still in, I think, is noteworthy because you have to have, I imagine the committee thought, Oklahoma in because they just beat Alabama, and they have to have Oklahoma above Alabama because they beat Alabama. So Alabama's sitting at 10. That's right there. I mean, there is no more room for error for Alabama.
What's the thinking then if you're putting Alabama behind Notre Dame?
I just think you like Notre Dame. You like the way Notre Dame is playing right now. You like what Notre Dame has done after.
If you put those two teams on a field, who would win that game? Notre Dame and Alabama.
I'm taking Notre Dame.
Okay.
I'm taking Notre Dame
on
a new.
Does that play into what is being done here in these rankings?
I think so. I think you're taking Notre Dame on a neutral field right now against Alabama, and I do think that plays into where they slotted them.
So Alabama falling all the way to 10. Oklahoma moved up 3 spots to 8. We now know that Georgia's in the top 4. Do you see anything here in the top 12 that you look at and you go, I don't like that, or I agree with that, they got this right?
This is about how you expected it to shake out, the way I'm looking at it right now, shaking out. Yeah, I don't really have, especially when you get above Notre Dame and Oklahoma, and we've still got some ball left to play here, right? You don't know that Oklahoma isn't going to stub their toe against LSU, for instance. You don't know that they're not going to stub their toe coming home here against Missouri this week, even though, both people may play, may not play, we don't know. But this Oklahoma offense has not been much to write home about, right? Yes, their defense played really well, gave them gifts against Alabama in the form of multiple turnovers, and they were able to win that game. But I don't think Oklahoma is this unimpeachable team to get in the college football playoff in that they can win out. Obviously, their ranking means they are in. But I just don't know that Oklahoma's going to win out here coming home.
All right, let's welcome in 2 more members into CBS Sports HQ, 2-time Super Bowl champ Bryant McFadden and former ACC Player of the Year Danny Cannell. B-Mac, your initial reaction here, Alabama falling all the way to 10.
I'm a bit surprised. That was a close game against Oklahoma, a national ranked team in Oklahoma, elite-like defense, and them being at 10 now, I mean, for Alabama. Richard, you made a key point with Alabama. They're in a very, very unusual spot based on what they've done when you look at their resume, and they have no room for error. So I'm a bit surprised, but I can tell you this much. To Rich's point, you'd rather be at 10 than being at 12 or 13. Because I feel like if Alabama, if they win in the Iron Bowl against Auburn, I highly doubt the committee would leave Alabama outside the top 12. So I'm a bit surprised to see them at 10, but I still think if they take care of their business, they will find a seat at the table in the playoffs.
Danny, I'm just a little confused a little bit of why Alabama is behind Notre Dame. Does that make sense to you, or you can see both sides of it?
The committee loves Notre Dame.
Yep.
I mean, that's been pretty evident that they love the way they're playing right now. They have been able to forget about their 2 losses, which happened the first 2 weeks of the season, and they've fallen in love with Notre Dame, and they're not backing down from it. I mean, if you went by wins, who have you beaten? It's not even close. Now, I do think the thing that's interesting about Alabama, and everybody kind of forgot about, is the loss to Florida State is a bad loss. Like, that's just the reality of what it is. By 2 touchdowns, first week of the season, it's a bad loss. But Bama by far has better wins than Notre Dame. I mean, it's not even close when you consider they've beaten Georgia, they've beaten Vanderbilt, who's a top 15, they've beaten Tennessee, who's a top 25 team currently in the rankings. It's just... But I think BMAC nailed it, though. Bama controls their own destiny.
Yep.
Bama wins out, they're in. Now, I'd worry about Bama a little bit losing to Auburn. That's going to be a tough game on the road in the Iron Bowl. And, they just got beat by a really strong defensive team that's very similar makeup. So I think Alabama controls their own destiny, but it's very clear that Notre Dame, the committee loves Notre Dame. And I would say they don't love Miami because Miami's still, they've closed that gap somewhat between Notre Dame, but Miami has better wins than Notre Dame, and they beat them head to head.
Yeah, but Danny, one thing to note here, and you mentioned the gap, right, between Notre Dame and Miami. People are going to say, well, just like you did, the Miami beat Notre Dame. You don't judge that head-to-head unless they are in the binary of comparable teams. Right now, they are too far away. That's the point you're making there. They're too far away for that head-to-head to come in. Now, Miami has narrowed that gap. I mean, they were in the 18 in the first
4.
Right. They're
8
18.
spots to 6 spots to now 4. They need to get a couple more to get in that same pod so that they stack them up next to each other. But even that being said, I don't know if the committee just, if they do get next to them, says, oops, we've been wrong all along. I think Miami just might be screwed.
Yeah, well, they might be. In fact, they need like BYU to lose this week. They need BYU to drop a game here the last 2 weeks of the season.
Here's what I tell you could help Miami here coming home. The funny thing about Notre Dame, while they are not in a conference, they do have the scheduling agreement with the ACC where they play 5 ACC teams, which means they have 4 common opponents with Miami, and 2 of them are still to come. Notre Dame plays Syracuse this week, and they play Stanford at the end of the season. Notre Dame's going to have to show in those games, I think, to completely win the binary debate if they get into one with Miami. Remember, your common opponents matter.
Indeed they do, and they will have a common opponent at the end of the season in Pitt. Let's take a look at the top 25 here. We have a change in the top 4. Georgia beating Texas, Alabama falling to Oklahoma, so Georgia now would receive a bye. Perhaps Georgia and Alabama will play for the SEC title, but we know Texas A&M still has the lead path there. We'll wait to see how that shakes out. Texas Tech at 5, and Ole Miss up 1 spot to 6. Oregon up 1 spot to 7. As we mentioned, Oklahoma up 3 spots to 8. Here's what it looks like 13 through 25. So Miami ranked 13th, but the path for Miami to get to the ACC Conference Championship game is really difficult. First, they got to win out. They need Pitt to beat Georgia Tech this week. They need Virginia Tech to beat UVA next week. They need SMU to lose their last 2, and they need Duke to lose 1 of 2 games. They play North Carolina and Wake Forest. So that's a tough path for Miami to get into the conference championship. But their overall overall record does look good enough, but it might not be good enough. And our group of 5 representative out of the American will be Tulane right now. So they would have the 12 seed. And right now, as we stand, it would be Miami as the representative out of the ACC. But as I just listed, going to be tough for them to get to the conference championship. Right now, it's looking like Georgia Tech in the driver's seat there, coming in at 16th in the country. All right, so you take a look at what we just laid out there for for Notre Dame and for Miami. When you look at what could happen here, if you're talking about helping or needing a team to lose, BYU could be that bid thief, right? If BYU wins out, goes to the Big 12 championship, the committee's going to have a hard time not including Texas Tech.
Yeah, I think the Big 12 title loser, if BYU wins out and gets there and Texas Tech wins out and get there, I think the Big 12 loser will also be in the dance because the committee has been very hard-pressed to ding teams that lose in the conference championship game because theoretically, if you're in a conference championship game, you have the 13th data point, and that 13th data point would be a good loss, quote-unquote, because you're in a conference championship game. So you're losing to a conference champion. So, yeah, I do think conferences still matter, even though we all like to throw that away and we don't like to worry about it. We don't like to talk about it. Conferences still matter, and I do think conference races still matter. Miami, I understand that Miami had a great non-conference slate, but you also have to take care of business in your league, and Miami hasn't done that.
I think one thing, BMAC, that the committee has made pretty clear, if you have a 0 or a 1 in your loss column, you will be ranked in front of a 2-loss team. It doesn't matter if you have 4 ranked wins. It doesn't matter if you have to come back, you're down by 27, you're Texas A&M. You're going to stay at the top because of that overall record.
Yeah, and it's about the timing of when you lose, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's very, very significant when you look at how the ranking is assembled now, especially with the most recent loss happening with Alabama this past weekend. But when you look at the top tier teams, I mean, that's status quo. I mean, when you look at what's happening now, I mean, Ole Miss, they have Mississippi State left, right? When you look at Oregon, they have USC. I mean, then you look at Oklahoma. Oklahoma is the one team that is currently sitting in a very, very comfortable seat, but I don't know if they will stay there because, yes, they have 2 competitive games left to be played where chaos could take place once again when you look at Mizzou and LSU to finish out the season. So there's a lot of things that could shake up in terms of what we see now and how the final rankings will look. But right now, to your point, Hakeem, yes, it's about when you lose compared to having that 1 loss or 2 loss, a la Alabama.
Well, and you take a look at what's coming up this week. The biggest game in terms of implications is USC at Oregon. If USC finds a way to win out, the committee is going to have a hard time keeping them out.
Yeah, we're going to have a conversation about USC, absolutely, if they're able to win that game. But if Oregon wins that game, by the way, that gives Oregon a really, really good win. You could have Oregon jump Ole Miss, for instance. And, I mean, you could get enough carnage, which how this works, that Oregon could find their way to sneak in the top 4 when all is said. And I'm talking about in December after conference championships are played. One of these Big Ten teams is not going to be in that top 4. Maybe Texas Tech loses, and one of those SEC teams also is going to be out of the top 4. So Oregon could find their way to kind of slink up into the top 4 when all is said and done.
And, Danny, there's a way that Michigan could find their way into the college football playoff. If they were to beat the Buckeyes, which they've done for 4 years in a row, I don't really want to think about that being a reality, but it certainly is a reality. That game is at the Big House in Ann Arbor. There's also a situation where Oregon has to go to Washington in a rivalry game there. That's never an easy place to play for any team.
There's a scenario where you could have a logjam of 10-2 teams that are just all right there, and what do you do, who you keep out? And if you want expansion to 16 teams or whatever it is, that's probably what you're rooting for. I think 12 teams is perfect, but there is a scenario we could have a bunch of those 10-2 teams, and then who are you going to lose out? And by the way, Ole Miss, who is, looks like they're sitting pretty at 5, if they lose to Mississippi State and you really start digging into their resume, they haven't played a great non-conference schedule. They don't own that many wins that are really signature wins. They did beat Oklahoma, so that would be a nice win for them. But outside of that, their resume isn't great. So there's a bunch of teams that we feel like are safe, and yet they've got rivalry games. Some of them are on the road, and you've got other teams that could win their way in and be in the same conversation. So I think there's still a lot of shuffling that could take place, and it could be really interesting because tonight it's kind of boring. Doesn't look like that much happened tonight, but it's college football. We still got a couple weeks left, rivalry weekend. This thing could get interesting for that final selection.
Hey, I got a question for you guys. Is there a possibility that a 3-loss team get in the final 12?
Yeah.
And
if Alabama loses in the SEC championship game.
In
right?
the SEC championship.
Yes.
You're saying regular season,
No,
BMAC,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, I'm saying regular season. Hypothetically
so.
speaking, what happens if Texas beat Texas A&M at the end of the season?
Texas is cooked.
There's too
Texas
much.
is
Yeah.
cooked.
There's
Can't
too
lose-
much.
You can't lose to Florida, who's not that good this year, and you can't lose the way you did against Georgia. I thought it would have been close. If they would have lost by a field goal, looking at a good loss like the Ohio State loss, then yeah, I could see a chance. But I think the logjam of 10-2 teams plus the fact that they lost to Georgia the way they did and losing to Florida, I think Texas is cooked. Everyone's kind of promoting that. I don't know why that keeps lingering around. Maybe it's to give hope. Maybe it's to drive up ratings for the Texas A&M game. But they're not getting in. Texas is done.
I agree, Danny. You can't sit here for the same people who want to argue that head-to-head is absolutely a thing that matters regarding Miami, Notre Dame. You can't then sit here and tell me you want Texas in after they get absolutely smoked by Georgia and they have a really bad loss against a Florida team that might not make a bowl game. So, yes, I agree with you, Danny.
I'm going to let you know right now, we're not going to talk about Texas ever again on a Tuesday night here for the next 2 weeks. I'm just telling you that. That was the last time I said it. That was the last time I said Texas. Okay? That's the last time I said it. We're going to talk about this, though, for weeks to come, at least for 1 week. Here's a look at the projected bracket. And Notre Dame and Oklahoma, that 8-9 game. So Notre Dame going to have to travel to Norman. Tulane, welcome to the party. I like Tulane. Texas Tech, that'd be an interesting 12-5 game. Miami and Ole Miss, all right. Alabama and Oregon in the first round. And You see who's waiting there in the quarterfinals. What's a matchup here that you go, like, does Tulane have a chance to beat Texas Tech or no chance at all, BMAC?
They have a chance. They have a chance. Would I put anything on it? No. Texas Tech, they're too explosive. They're too explosive. And that defensive front, I mean, you know, in terms of championship football, games are won and lost in the trenches. I mean, Texas Tech, defensively, their defensive line can go. They got a bunch of pros on there, along with one of the best linebackers in the game. So they have too many dudes on the defensive side, I think, that would take that game into deep waters for Texas Tech to be able to prevail and win that game. So, I wouldn't put anything on any upsets happening in that matchup.
Danny, I want to draw your eye to that matchup between Alabama and Oregon. The Tide have to go out to Eugene and potentially play in some nasty, rainy football weather. And it's not that they haven't ever played in weather like that, but if Alabama's got to go to Eugene, oh man, that could be an absolute dynamite matchup.
That would be awesome. For 20 years, we heard teams, you can't go win in Big Ten country, or you can't go win up north. And last year we saw Tennessee try to do it, and we saw a lot of fans travel up to Ohio State. We saw how that worked out. This is one of the things where I do think in the seeding, because we just talk about getting in, that home field advantage in that, in that first round game, if you don't get the bye, that is a huge, huge edge. It is so hard to win on the road in college football during the regular season. You throw in even more adverse weather as it gets colder, and you throw in even more volatile fans that are even more crazy, and that would be insane to watch that unfold. So I think that's a matchup I'm here. Can I hit on something on Tulane, though? Because I do think Tulane was a good winner for the committee, because remember, in the AP Top 25 that was released, James Madison was the top-ranked team. But this is where I think the committee does more research than the voters, who may or may not go back to the last five. They're probably tired from watching games. They throw them in there. This tells me they're looking at strength of schedule for the group of five, and that they're actually looking at Tulane as a 2-loss team versus James Madison as a 1-loss team, saying, you know what, they scheduled 3 Power 4 opponents. They beat 2 of them in Duke and Northwestern. And you had James Madison, who only scheduled 1 in Louisville, and they lost by 2 touchdowns. So I think that is good that the committee is paying attention to the group of five's strength of schedule. And I think Tulane was a potential, winner from at least leapfrogging them in this ranking.
Yeah, the new metric, record strength, plays a huge role in these rankings. Coming up, more reaction to the third set of college football playoff rankings. The guys are back next on CBS Sports HQ. Keep it locked. The third set of college football playoff rankings have been released. Here's a look at the projected bracket. Ohio State, Indiana, Texas A&M, and Georgia would receive a first-round bye. Seeds 5 through 12 will play each other in the first round, with the higher-seeded teams playing host. 11 games will be played in all, culminating with the national championship in Miami. All right, back here with Richard Johnson, Brian McFadden, and Danny Cannell. And you saw a little taste of that first-round matchup there: Tulane, Texas Tech, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, Miami, Ole Miss, Alabama, Oregon. Which one of those would you most look forward to be watching in the first round?
I'm looking at that Miami Ole Miss game, and I'm thinking that's juicy from the standpoint of Lane and Mario, obviously on the same staff together in the past, have some of that shared knowledge and know each other. I think that would be really fascinating. How would Miami handle going on the road to playing in that spot? It'd be really, really interesting.
And Danny, we heard that Joe McGuire, he was campaigning and making a case for the group of five. He was campaigning for James Madison to be a part of the field, and now right now he'd project to match up against the American champion in Tulane.
Yeah, I'm sure he would love that. They're projected to be a 23.5-point favorite.
Sure.
Like, I would love to be in that spot to play the group of five. I have been saying for about a month now that I don't think the group of five should be guaranteed a spot in the college football playoff. Last year, didn't say anything because I thought Boise State earned their way in. And I think this goes for any conference. There was a chance we could have gotten an 8-4 Duke team in the playoff from the ACC, and I said, you know what? I don't want to see them either. The group of five, I do think there should be a minimum requirement that they're a certain ranking. And I don't think it even has to be the top 12. Maybe it's the top 15, top 16, so they're in the vicinity. I think all these teams, especially this year, are going to be completely overwhelmed. Remember, Tulane played Ole Miss, who is a playoff caliber team, and lost 45-10 in the regular season. Last week it was USF. They got smoked by Miami, playoff caliber team. I just think this year there's not a viable team from the group of 5 that can really give a Power 4 opponent much of a contest. So I wonder if this does spark maybe a change in the requirements that you look at as opposed to a guaranteed spot for the group of 5, which I think would be better to say, you know what, we're going to have a minimum ranking where you have to be in order to be considered for the playoff. That wasn't received real well a month ago, but people are starting to come around to it and saying, you know what, maybe that's not a great idea.
Well, BMAC, what this tells me is that perhaps we need more teams, right? If we're going to invite a group of 5 and we're going to make these restrictions for certain conferences, or it's going to be a certain record that you have to get into the field, right? You're not going to take 3 lost teams. Maybe this is telling us that we do need to expand in the next season or beyond.
No. I love 12. I think 12 is good. You don't want to continue.
So what are you trying to do? You're trying to kick out the group of 5?
I mean, to Danny's point, you got to earn it.
I'd agree.
And you got to earn it.
Last year, Boise earned it.
Yeah, they did.
And Boise earned it last year, but then we saw how it played out against Penn State, right? We saw that Penn State was a bit too much for Boise. And when you look at Boise, and let's say if Tulane gets in, Boise has star power. They had the best running back in college football, a Heisman front runner, a guy who was going to be drafted top 5. So they had star power along with everything else they had on their team, which led to all of us looking at that game against Penn State with a lot of expectations and excitement. So now, if the same thing happened that happened last year to Tulane, I'm utilizing Tulane as the example because currently they will be representing the group of 5 in the playoffs. If they get blown out again, I think we really got to think about what Danny presented to all of us. If they don't earn it, if they don't have a certain amount of Power 4 games or a high-level contest, no, they shouldn't. And just adding more teams, no, you're making it easy. Hakeem, you know this. The playoffs, it's hard to get in. It's supposed to be hard to get in. Mm-hmm. All of these teams know exactly what they should do to get into the playoffs. It's just like the NFL. If you want to guarantee a spot in the playoffs, win your division in the NFL. College football, win your conference. You know exactly what you need to do to get into the playoffs to guarantee yourself a spot. I love the battle. I love the grind that it is right now with 12 teams. You got to find a way to fight to get in.
Give me 14 teams.
Make it too easy.
14 teams and the top 2 teams get a bye. 14 teams and the top 2 teams get a bye, just like the NFL.
I'm good with 12 teams, but guys, I could not disagree more with leaving out the group of 5 champion or making some arbitrary win cutoff for the group of 5 champion. You guys know, as the great competitors that you are, that the game is not played on paper. You understand what the spread may be for a James Madison or a North Texas against whoever it is in the college football playoff, but nobody gave Arizona State a chance last year against Texas, and they took the Longhorns to overtime and almost won that game. So I know that just because the logo on the side of James Madison helmet is not something that impresses you, at the end of the day, let them play it out. They deserve to do it because they win the league.
That's different though. Arizona State
we gave them a chance.
Yeah.
James Madison had a chance against Louisville and lost by 2 touchdowns. Tulane had a chance versus Ole Miss, got blown out by 35 points. And the last year, Boise played Oregon tight, and they only lost by a field goal. That's why everyone was like, okay, you guys are good. You've got to be able to show you can be competitive, and these teams haven't this year.
Yeah, and Rich, you can't compare Arizona State to James Madison.
Agreed.
Why not?
Because one's in the Big 12. Yeah, that's 2 different.
Just because they're in that
different competition
it's a
is what I would
different level.
say.
No one wants to admit it. It's a different level.
I will give you that it's a different level. I understand that it is a different level, but it doesn't mean that they don't deserve to be in the playoff just because it is a different level. I agree.
If they earn it, they do, but not every year.
Yeah, I would agree. I would have to say, Arizona State was on a different level. All right, I want to play a little blind resume here. Little game. We got 3 of you here to guess which team is which, okay? We've got Team A. We've got Team B. Richard, I'm going to start with you. You take a look at these 2 resumes. Which team are you putting into the playoff?
I think if you look at these two resumes and you treat them as a binary,
Yeah.
sure, you're putting Team B in the college football playoff.
Okay.
I think I got a good idea who Team B
All right.
is and who Team A is.
B-Mac, who you putting in? Team A or Team B?
But first of all, I know both of these teams.
I know
don't
you
wanna
do.
give it
Don't
away.
answer. Just answer the question. Team A or Team B?
I'll go B.
Okay. Danny, which team?
It's B all day long. But this is why I wish the committee, instead of taking off the stupid hats at the door and going through that exercise, I wish they actually use more blind resumes, and that's how they chose the teams. Like, put on blindfolds and just tell them their resumes, because I think it's pretty obvious who has the better resume.
Let's show them what they've won. Behind door number 2 is Miami. Miami has the win over Notre Dame. But Miami is being left out in the cold, and Notre Dame, the committee, as Danny said, they love Notre Dame, right? I mean, look where Notre Dame is this week.
And you know it's because Miami's
They're at 9.
And you know it's because Miami's second loss isn't any good, where Notre Dame's is better than Miami's. You also know that, and I think this is something that people forget, Notre Dame may not be in a conference, but they do play 5 ACC opponents. Miami and Notre Dame are going to have 4 common opponents between the two by the end of the season. Miami plays Pitt at the end of the season. Notre Dame plays Syracuse and then Stanford here in the last 2 games of the season. So we are going to get some more data points to compare both of these teams against each other because they will have 4 common opponents by the end of the season. I think how both of those 2 teams show coming down the stretch here is also going to impact this. And the other thing is it may not actually be a binary between Miami and Notre Dame because, as we talked about earlier in the show, Danny brought it up, Miami is still too far away from Notre Dame in the rankings to judge them sort of right up against each other.
Which loss did you say was worse for Miami?
Miami's second loss being worse.
What's the SMU loss?
Yes.
In overtime.
So, in overtime versus a team that's probably going to be 9-3.
Yeah, they're both 7-3
that to me
right
is
now.
Not an awful loss.
Both
Like,
those
I don't
teams are
think
7-3.
Yeah, it's a worse loss than Notre Dame's loss to one of the best teams in the country.
Right. But it's not like, to me, it's not a disqualifying loss, like where it takes them out. I think their resumes, as we just displayed, I think are way closer than anybody wants to admit, where you have to honor the head-to-head. And I do think Miami's getting screwed somewhat.
I agree. B-Mac, I think Miami is getting a raw deal here. If they win out, let's say they beat Pitt by 30, and
That's
you
what they
just
need
saw
to do.
Notre Dame. You saw Notre Dame beat Pitt by 22. What if Miami beats Pitt by 30? They have the same exact same exact record, and they have the head-to-head, and you're telling me Notre Dame is getting in because they look like the better team. Okay, if you're going to tell me that, if you're going to tell me that they've got Jeremiah Love and they're awesome and they're better than Miami head-to-head, fine. I'll believe it. But what the record, what the resume says is Miami should be in.
Yeah, who has the better win?
Miami,
right? And I understand you talk about who has the uglier loss. I mean, you can straddle the fence. SMU is a pretty good team. They're not one of the best teams in college football, but they're not a bottom barrel type of team. So to your point, yeah, Miami could be in a tough spot because everything that we've highlighted with Miami means nothing if they don't get to Charlotte. It means nothing. If they do not get to Charlotte and win, they got to win. And right now, they don't control their own destiny to get to Charlotte. They need help. So for Notre Dame, we can argue about Notre Dame if they're deserving of being in front of Miami, BYU, Bama, whoever it is. All Notre Dame got to do is win out. Syracuse, Stanford, no conference championship game, by the way. So they don't have to worry about playing in another game where they could potentially have another loss to their resume. They're in a 2-game season. They win out, they will have a seat in the playoffs. So that's that Notre Dame is that school that the committee, it's an attention getter.
Yep.
It makes sense. It moves the bottom line. And they are playing pretty good football. But for Miami doesn't move the bottom line like Notre Dame moves the bottom line. That's why Notre Dame is currently sitting in front of Alabama, BYU, Utah, and Miami. So they're good. We can argue back and forth, deserving or not. They beat Syracuse and Stanford. You better believe, I guarantee,
Yep.
They're in the playoffs.
Yep. And we're going to have this conversation again next week, right? If both teams win this Saturday, we're going to be right where we were right now, and we're going to be talking about two teams who are 9-2, and we're going to be still talking about how Miami's resume is better. But until then, we move on. Bryant McFadden, Danny Cannell, and Richard Johnson here with us on CBS Sports HQ. Coming up, playoff implications in Week 13. There's a path for USC as they fight on. We'll break down the games that will impact the CFP. We've got picks and analysis next on CBS Sports HQ. Playoff implications in Week 13. Massive game in the Big Ten. 8-2 USC clashing with 9-1 Oregon. If the Trojans win out, they'd have an argument to make the college football playoff. The ACC looking like a one-bid conference. Georgia Tech plays its final conference game on Saturday against Pitt, who also only has one loss in the ACC. In the Big 12, BYU only has one conference loss. They play at Cincinnati this week. Bearcats have a chance to play spoiler against the Cougars. Set it up and break it down. Welcome in two-time Super Bowl champ Bryant McFadden and Sportsline data scientist Mackenzie Brooks. Let's start in the Big Ten. USC at Oregon on CBS. Mackenzie, take us through the chances to make the CFP for both the Trojans and the Ducks.
This is probably the biggest swing we've seen to date here with USC. This is a team that sits at 23% right now to make the college football playoff. That jumps to 89% if we want to get technical here, or down to 2%. Now, getting to that 90% is essentially them inheriting everything that Oregon was taking up in the model. So right now, Oregon sits around that 73%. This is a number because they've been baked into that third at-large bid for so many weeks. They also would jump to 90% with a win here and drop down to 22% chance with a loss. So obviously, they have a lot less to lose, but 22% chance is obviously not a spot you would want to be in. Again, USC literally would just be taking the spot from Oregon, which is crazy to think because in the beginning of the season, the way we had everything coded from the Big Ten, if you were a 10-2 Big Ten team, we almost wanted to consider you a lock here. But if you're a 10-2 Big Ten team and you're Oregon and USC has the same record as you and you lost the head-to-head, we don't feel so implied to put you in the college football playoff here. So basically everything on the line here for USC. And if you want to look at odds makers' perspective, because sometimes that helps, produce and support what we were already talking about, Oregon's around a 70% chance to beat USC this weekend, and that correlates directly to their 70% chance implied right now to make the college football playoff. So that's odds makers also saying, hey, it's win or go home.
Yeah, the odds makers think that Oregon's going to win this thing by double digits, perhaps. This game features two of the best offenses in the country. Oregon is a 9.5-point favorite. BMAC, do you trust the Ducks to cover the number?
I trust the Ducks. Most importantly, to win. I know that's what the Oregon fans would like to hear. But yeah, I do love them in this spot to cover the spread. And here's why, Hakeem, Kenzie. When you look at Oregon, it's hard for me to imagine Dan Lannon losing 2 games in his backyard. Remember, they already took one on the chin against Indiana.
Yep.
So now having an opportunity to correct your wrongs against a conference foe, I really think they take advantage of this opportunity. And then the last time we saw Oregon on the grass was against Minnesota. Something clicked offensively for Dante Moore in their passing game. He had his best throwing day last week to date throughout the entire season, 306 yards through the air. He was aggressive in throwing the football. His accuracy was there, and he was throwing with confidence. I think that confidence that he established against Minnesota will carry on in this matchup against USC for them to take care of their business and for the bettors to cover this large spread as well. You know, the fans will be upside down there in the stadium in Oregon, and it's going to be bananas for them from start to finish, and I like that momentum to carry in their favor to win this ball game.
Well, it's nice when you have your top 3 pass catchers back as well if you're Oregon.
I think you could go team total here as well, because I think you start to look at these teams that we know are likely just competing for that at-large bid, and the seeding style points really become such a major factor here. So looking at offenses like Notre Dame, looking at offenses like Ole Miss, Oregon, team totals could be the move for them this weekend.
Well, I usually like to say the trend is your friend, BMAC, but the trend is not your friend because USC is 6-1 against the spread in their last 7 games as an underdog. So
but Hakeem,
keep that in mind.
Oregon fans can care less. They just want to win.
I know. I'm just telling you, if you're going to lay the 9.5. I'm just saying, maybe take the points. In the ACC, Georgia Tech plays its final conference game on Saturday against Pitt, who also only has one loss in the ACC. Mackenzie, do you see the ACC getting in more than one team into the playoff?
I think your only chance of getting two teams, which I don't find likely, but I think technically your only chance would be Georgia Tech beats Georgia at the end of the year, and then they make it to Charlotte and they go on and lose that game. Could be your only potential shot, because when we have Georgia Tech right now, if they lose this game to Pittsburgh, it goes down to a 19% chance to make the college football playoff, again, which correlates to their 19% chance to beat Georgia. So obviously it's not a great number, but it still keeps you alive. I'd say they go from... It's tough. I'd say Pitt is more in a situation where they have more wiggle room because they could go on and beat Miami. But if you are Pitt, you have to have UVA lose to Virginia Tech. So, yes, it's some things you can control in your favor if you're Pittsburgh, but it's not necessarily the best situation. You're trying to hit like a three-leg parlay essentially here. So Georgia Tech goes from a 38% to around a 56% chance. With a win here, it continues to stay in the driver's seat to Charlotte. And as far as losing, down to a 19% chance. You're hoping other things fall your way. You're hoping a Notre Dame loses, a BYU loses, maybe the SEC cannibalizes itself even more. So it's more talking about a driver's seat here, and Georgia Tech's out of it with a loss.
Mackenzie, I want to get your take on Miami and Notre Dame. Let's say they finish with the same exact record. Miami has the head-to-head win over Notre Dame. You know the committee loves Notre Dame, but what would be the right decision? What would be the right call there if those teams have the same exact record and one has the head-to-head advantage?
I think you'd have to go Notre Dame here because I think there still needs to be some merit to what you're doing within your conference. And I know it's frustrating for Miami, especially with that head-to-head win. But the teams you lost to are teams that lost to other teams. Like, as I've said it before, parity in the ACC specifically doesn't bode well for the ACC. Parity in the SEC bodes well for the SEC. It means, hey, we'll take all of you. But for a conference like Miami, nothing stings more than beating up on each other. So Notre Dame, I know Danny was mentioning it earlier in the program, it's the momentum they have right now. And even CJ Carr looking better. I mean, this is a team with a better offense. Not only do they have the run game, they have the pass game. It's a team that the committee would want to see play in the playoff. And I know Miami is also a brand name here. And Miami's not completely out of it. You guys mentioned it earlier. The easiest way to explain all of these is individual things could happen, but trying to hit a 7-leg parlay to get Miami to Charlotte, now that's where it becomes glass half empty for me. But I do think Notre Dame will end up being the best call.
Yeah, we'll see what ends up happening. Georgia Tech is 10-0 at home since the start of last season. Yellow Jackets are 2.5-point home favorites against the Panthers, BMAC. Will the home team be a buzzin'?
I think so. You gave us that stat, man. They've been outstanding at home. The last 11 ball games, they're 10-1. The only team to beat them there at home was Georgia a few years ago. So when you look at what they've done so far this season, they've been scrappy, finding ways to win. It was an unexpected loss a few weeks ago to NC State, but I think that kind of opened up their lens a little bit in terms of the sense of urgency. But one thing I can say for sure, you should expect to see points. I don't trust either defense in this matchup, Pitt, Georgia Tech. I think the total is set around 60 or so, if I'm not mistaken. I wouldn't be surprised to see that surpass that total because I think points will be at a premium.
All right. Couple of games with playoff implications here in Week 13. Bryant McFadden and Mackenzie Brooks here on CBS Sports HQ. Both of you, thank you very much. Check out the latest edition of College Football Insiders, hosted by a powerhouse team of reporters, including Richard Johnson. The show delivers the stories behind the headlines. You can watch the full episode right now, their latest, on the CBS Sports College Football YouTube page. Coming up, we'll break down our winners and losers from the third set of CFP rankings, who's sitting pretty and who's got some work to do. We're working next on CBS Sports HQ. Show me the bracket. Third set of college football playoff rankings have been released. Here's a look at the projected bracket. Welcome to the party, Tulane. Georgia moving up to number 4. Would be receiving a first-round bye. Seeds 5 through 12 will play each other in the first round. The higher-seeded teams will play host. You see Miami, the projected ACC champ, they would need a lot to go right for them to be in the ACC Conference Championship game. Perhaps they'll get in as an at-large, but that's also a block there for them. We'll have to wait to see how it all plays out here in the next couple of weeks. 11 games to be played, culminating with the national championship in Miami. Welcome in CBS Sports college football insider Richard Johnson, two-time national champ Damian Harris, and CBS Sports HQ college football analyst Brad Crawford here to break down their winners and losers from the third set of CFP rankings. Damian, I'll start with you first. Who's your biggest winner from the third CFP rankings?
I mean, I'm going to be a homer, Hakeem. Y'all know who I root for. It's the SEC. We're still the best conference in college football. And when we talk about in a playoff system where a lot of conferences cannibalize themselves, teams cannibalize themselves, knock themselves out of elimination, we just saw Oklahoma walk into Bryant-Denny Stadium. They knocked off Alabama at home, and yet Alabama is still in the driver's seat. They still control their own destiny to get to the SEC championship, to get to the college football playoffs. I love it. People have been saying that the SEC is dead. We're not. We're back. We got 5 teams in. Now we just got to keep winning. The SEC is a huge winner right now. We got all these teams in, and they're all good teams.
Who said the SEC was dead?
Drive for 5, baby.
Yeah, there's a drive for 5 on this desk that
A lot
we've
of
been
people,
campaigning
Hakeem.
for.
A lot of people. A lot of haters.
Brad, I don't think there's any haters here.
No, SEC's always been a 5-bid league. It's going to be a 5-bid league unless Bama or Oklahoma stubs its toe these last couple of weeks. My big first winner tonight is Tulane from the G5. The selection committee, fellas, is practically begging Tulane to win out, despite James Madison looking better, at least on paper. North Texas, probably the hottest team in the American. I mean, we saw Tulane get crushed 45-10 by Ole Miss, the number 6 team in the country right now, and get blown out by UTSA. I mean, is that a playoff discussion worthy team? Probably not, but the committee thinks so, right? So to me, James Madison and North Texas, both those schools have a better case. You see the percentages right there according to Sportsline. North Texas, according to the analytics, is the favorite right now. I think the winner of the American Conference is going to be the selection committee's G5 selection. James Madison, I'm sorry, but the record strength and strength of schedule just isn't there for the Dukes.
Brad, I think John Summerall agrees with you. I mean, he said today, right, that they're not a top 25 team, and he doesn't know what anybody's talking about. And yet they are sitting in the top 25 tonight. So we'll see how that ends up coming home here. My big winner, first big winner, is the Big 12. A lot of respect for the Big 12 from the committee. You've got BYU and Utah sitting right there, right on the fringe. The college football playoff at the 11th and 12th ranking spots. One of those two teams is going to play in the Big 12 championship game, and if they win out to get there, I think there's a pretty good chance that the loser of the Big 12 championship game ends up being in the 12-team field when all is said and done. Let's see how that shakes out. And then you've also got Arizona State, which, by the way, clocks in at number 25 from the Big 12 this week. Arizona State's had a lot of adversity this season. No Jordan Tyson for large stretches of this season. No Sam Leavitt. They've gone through a lot this season, but have kept it together. That's a credit to what Kenny Dillingham has built. Beat Texas Tech, for instance, earlier this season, despite all of that going on. A credit to what Dillingham has built there and kept together, and they are rewarded this week at least with a top 25 ranking, and that boosts just a little bit Texas Tech by giving them a quote-unquote good loss, and that also boosts Utah for a quote-unquote good win because Utah beat now-ranked Arizona State.
And Houston coming in at 23rd, so certainly a solid night for the Big 12. Damian, give us another big winner from the third CFP rankings.
Notre Dame, Notre Dame, Notre Dame. Let's talk about it. I mean, they're one win. They're one credible win right now. In my opinion, it's not Pitt. It's USC. USC's a good team, but they're still on the outside looking in. And if I have to assess the committee and their decisions, we did see that head-to-head matchups actually do matter. Now, a week ago, everybody was complaining, how is Notre Dame ranked ahead of Miami? Listen, Miami's got their own problems, but at the end of the day, the result of the Oklahoma-Alabama game showed us head-to-head matchups matter, yet Notre Dame is still ranked ahead of Miami, and they really only have one quality win. They lost to Miami, they lost to Texas A&M, the two legit teams on their schedule that they've played so far this season. They handed them L's. So Notre Dame, by the skin of their teeth and by the luck of the Irish, they are at number 9.
Brad, who's your other big winner?
Y'all might disagree with this, but I think it's Miami. And I want to address the leprechaun in the room as it relates to the Hurricanes, all right? Miami rose 3 spots last week. They rose 2 spots tonight. Hurricanes are still 4 spots behind Notre Dame, but there's a key point to that. New committee chair Hunter Yurachek said tonight that the head-to-head data point has not come into play yet because Notre Dame and Miami, according to the committee, are not in the same tier. I think when Miami wins out, blows out, these two teams are going to play, Virginia Tech and Pitt, the next 2 weeks, then Miami is going to be in that same tier with a 10-win Notre Dame, and you're going to have 2 more common opponents to add to the pie. So I think we are going to see that head-to-head come into play here in a couple weeks, and Yurachek said it tonight. It might not be there now, but when Miami gets these 2 blowouts next couple weeks, it's going to happen.
My other big winner from this week, I actually think it's Oregon. Because I think if Oregon can beat USC this week, it would give them a good ranked win. I think you could see them flip-flop with Ole Miss in the rankings. And then you'd have Oregon sitting right there at number 6, and you give them enough carnage ahead of them, and they could sneak into one of the bye seeds in the top 4, I think. That would be a Big Ten championship loser dropping out of the top 4. Maybe A&M catches a loss to either Texas or in the SEC championship game and drops out of the top 4. If you have both of those two things happen, you could get Oregon slink their way up into the top 4 and find a way in to get a bye in the college football playoff. Oregon is sitting right now at a nice perch, sitting pretty.
Well, we'll see if the SEC gets a drive for 5, because we could see USC wrecking the party. We could also say, as I reluctantly say, we could see Michigan crashing the party if they do what I don't want to say could happen. I don't want to say that because then Ohio State would be a loser. Coming up, we're going to talk about the losers. Ohio State, not one of them. Alabama falling 6 spots to number 10. We'll break down the biggest losers from the 3rd set of college football playoff rankings next on CBS Sports HQ. Top 4 seeds get a bye to the quarterfinals. This format replaces the conference champion model that was used last year. 5 highest-ranked conference champions still guaranteed a spot in the field, maintaining access for the group of 5. However, those champions will no longer receive preferential seeding. So Miami's in the field right now, but they've got a very, very difficult path to get to the ACC Conference Championship. They would need to win out. They would need Pitt to beat Georgia Tech this week. They would need Virginia Tech to beat UVA next week. SMU lose its last 2, and Duke to lose 1. So you're telling me there's a chance? Yes, there's a chance, but it's not a great one. All right, let's talk losers here. And Richard, who's your biggest loser coming out of the 3rd CFP rankings?
My biggest loser, I'm actually going to go with Miami.
Yeah,
and
I would agree.
Our guy Brad Crawford kind of spooked me, because let me tell you something. Brad Crawford knows his way around this top 12 and how this committee thinks. So when I have a differing opinion with Brad, it gets me shaking in my boots. But I do still think that Miami's a little too far from Notre Dame to make that their game, their head-to-head, really matter here. Now, we're going to get some more data points with common opponents, because Miami has Syracuse and Stanford coming home. Notre Dame has Syracuse and Stanford coming home, and Miami plays Pitt at the end of the season. So we're going to get some more common opponents. But Brad is telling you that they're going to keep tightening up here in the last couple weeks of the season. So that's why I'm a little worried. But for now, I'll say Miami's a loser, because they're still too far away from Notre Dame for that head-to-head matchup to matter.
Miami needs to beat Pitt by 30. That's going to be at least one of the requirements here to have a shot there. They need some people to fall in front of them. Brad, give us a loser here for you after the 3rd set of rankings.
I'm stunned Alabama dropped 6 spots, especially behind Notre Dame. Not a good look considering a loss at Auburn in 2 weeks in the Iron Bowl. That's going to nuke Kalen DeBoer's season if that happens. Not only SC Championship goes awry, but Alabama will be out of the playoff now that they're the 10 seed. We were just talking about, Hakeem, like 2 weeks ago, Alabama had beaten 4 consecutive top 25, top 20 teams even, unprecedented during SEC play. And now we've forgotten about that, and we're pointing to the Florida State loss in the opener. It's selective reasoning for the committee, and we see this every year with certain teams.
I love Brad Crawford. I'm glad I don't even have to say it, so the people won't call me a homer, and the people at home will say, man, I'm tired of Damien Harrison's Alabama propaganda. No. Brad Crawford is absolutely right. We've all of a sudden just forgotten this resume that Alabama has put together. We're all of a sudden now going all the way back to week 1 and bringing Florida State back into the conversation when we know Alabama is a different team than they were week 1. And Florida State, they're a different team, but for the wrong reason. So I don't even have to go over this anymore. Brad, thank you so much. I am going to point the microscope at Georgia Tech, because the committee is basically saying, we don't like you, and we're not impressed. You have no style points, even though Haynes King, sometimes you might get them 500 yards of offense a game. It's your defense. We're not impressed with them. We're not impressed with you as a team. And something that's so interesting, they both, RJ and Brad, have hit on it. the committee said that Miami is a placeholder right now. And guess who they're a placeholder for? Georgia Tech, because Georgia Tech is the team in the ACC that controls their own destiny. They went out. They don't even have to beat Georgia. They went out in the ACC in the conference. One more game, it's winnable. Then they're going to Charlotte for the ACC championship game. And if they win that, they're in the college football playoff. So Georgia Tech has been I banged on the desk. They've been criminally underrated and behind Miami for 2 weeks in a row. When again, they said it, Miami's just holding a spot open for them.
It's too bad. Miami has a win over Notre Dame. It doesn't matter anything. It doesn't hold any water. I guess that's
Not
how
yet.
it goes.
Number one team in the conference.
Not yet.
They should be ranked like it.
Richard Johnson, Damian Harris, Brad Crawford here with us on CBS Sports HQ. Men, thank you. Coming up, a full bracket breakdown. Damian Harris is back to fill out his bracket. You got to see who he's got winning it all. That's next on CBS Sports HQ. Keep it locked. It's year 2 of the 12-team playoff. Here's a look at the projected bracket based on the third set of college football playoff rankings. Ohio State, Indiana, Texas A&M, and welcome to the top 4, Georgia. They'd all receive a first-round bye. Seeds 5 through 12 play each other in the first round with the higher-seeded team playing host. 11 games to be played in all, culminating with the national championship in Miami. And every Tuesday before Selection Sunday, we'll be doing a full bracket breakdown with a guest picker. And how about a guy who's won a couple of natties? Welcome in two-time national champ Damian Harris here for Bracket Breakdown, filling out the bracket just like college basketball. Let's get right into it. Damian, start in Norman, where Oklahoma would be hosting Notre Dame. Who's advancing to play Ohio State?
Man, listen, this is big brand on big brand. And I like the Sooners, especially because of their defense. Listen, they're going to get pressure on CJ Carr. They've got the dudes in the interior of that defensive lineman and the interior of that front seven to maybe not stop Jeremiah Love, but at least limit Jeremiah Love. And if they can do those two things, get the ball back to John Mateer, let him make some of those off-schedule plays, they'll pick up another win in Norman.
All right, 12-5 projected matchup. Tulane, the representative from the group of 5, would travel to Lubbock to play Texas Tech. Damian, do the Green Wave upset the Red Raiders?
They do not. Listen, I got a lot of love for Tulane. Jake Retzlaff in particular, he's done a great job this season, but the money Texas Tech has spent, it's paid off, especially when you look at this defensive line led by David Bailey. He's leading the FBS in sacks right now. They got too many horses in the stable. They went out, they spent the money, they got the right guys for that program, and they run away with this one. Tulane can't keep up.
Down the bracket, projected ACC champ Miami, which would need a lot to go right for them to play in the ACC Conference Championship. They would take on Ole Miss in this scenario. Who you got?
Mm-hmm. Well, we don't know if Miami's actually going to get in, but for the sake of this, for the hypothetical, I'm going with Ole Miss. Listen, the mojo that Lane Kiffin has got this team in right now, the confidence that he has, the way that he's taken ownership of this job and control of this team, they're too hot right now. When I look at Miami, they've shown me too many instances throughout the season of who they really are. And that's in the biggest moments. Mario Cristobal isn't the best head coach. Carson Beck isn't the best quarterback. This defense kind of disappears. The pass rush with Ruben Bain and Mesidor and this run game that they want to talk about is so much better. I haven't seen enough of these things when the lights are the brightest, so I'm going with the Rebels.
All right, all chalk so far. Let's go to the 10-7 matchup. Alabama on the road in Eugene against Oregon. It's a tough matchup for your team. Roll Tide or quack, quack?
Man, this matchup is going to be tough as hell for my Tide, but I'm going to roll with them because as much as I love Dante Moore to Decorian Moore and Noah Whittingham and what Oregon does, Dan Lanning is a phenomenal coach. Alabama showed me something. From week 1 up until they lost to Oklahoma, they were the most improved team in college football. And as a fan, that's encouraging when a team can build on a loss and get better week after week after week, beat 4 ranked SEC conference opponents in a row to start conference play. That showed me something. Now, yes, they lost to Oklahoma, but there were a lot of lessons to learn in that game. If they just protect better in the passing game and protect for Ty Simpson so he doesn't get rattled and doesn't get off scheduled, he will make the plays to win you a football game. And they've got the dudes on defense that can hold up to this Oregon offense. I truly believe that in my heart of hearts, Hakeem. You might not believe me,
Good luck.
But I believe in me.
All right,
and I believe
you
in
should.
the Tide.
You should believe in your school because I believe in my school. Let's move to the quarterfinals. OU against OSU. Who you got?
Man, I got Ohio State. They're going to put John Mateer in the box. They're not going to let him run 53 yards across the field and then reverse field and then throw it to an uncovered guy in the end zone. This defense is too good. Then you look at the offense for Ohio State. Julian saying masterclass at the quarterback position. He's been surgical with the way he's dissecting defenses. Jeremiah Smith, who hasn't had to be Superman, once you get to the college football playoffs, he knows it's big on big football. We're going to see his best. Ohio State rolls handedly.
All right, next quarterfinal matchup, Texas Tech against Georgia. Who advances?
Listen, Texas Tech spent a lot of money, and it's paid off. It's gotten them a lot of resources, but you can't buy toughness, and that's what Georgia has. Kirby Smart says, don't be easy to kill, and they are not. No matter how many punches you swing at them, no matter how fast you try to outrun them, you just can't kill them. And again, this Georgia team, they're the hottest in the country, and it's because of Kirby Smart. He's the best in-game, halftime, mid-season, in-season adjuster that there is in college football. Georgia has single-handedly rewritten every narrative we wrote them at the beginning of the season when they lost to Alabama. They pull off the upset.
All right, I'll take that from you. I'll buy it. Keep moving through the bracket. Ole Miss against Texas A&M did not play in the regular season. Who's advancing in your bracket?
Texas A&M, and it's because of Marcel Reed. He's lightning in a bottle. He can make the plays. He can make the throws. He started showing us what he can do with his arm and what he did against South Carolina in the second half. I mean, he needs to be in the Heisman conversation. I'm going to throw him in there. He's my number one Heisman guy right now. They've got a running game that's one of the best in the country. Cassius Howe is a household name that we will learn, that we will appreciate, that we will know about for a very long time in the NFL. And he's showing it right now with the way he's leading this defensive line. I like Texas A&M.
Well, Marcel Reed does have the third best odds to win the Heisman behind Fernando Heisman-Doza and my guy Julian Sain at Ohio State. Yeah, you like that. All right, last quarterfinal matchup, Alabama against Indiana. Kurt Signetti once on Nick Saban's staff. Is it the Crimson Tide or the Crimson and Cream here?
It's Crimson and Cream. I hate to say it, but Indiana is a damn good football team. And you just mentioned Curtis Rourke is the Heisman favorite for a reason. Now, he might not be my Heisman favorite, but damn
Mendoza.
it, if he doesn't deserve
Rourke's
to be.
gone.
Oh, yeah, Mendoza, excuse me. Mendoza is the Heisman favorite, and it's for a damn good reason because he has played great football. And the way that Kurt Signetti has built this team, they are tough in the trenches. They went out and got their superstar receivers. We didn't think Indiana could be better this year than they were last year. They are, and they beat Alabama.
Okay, there you go. Now to the semifinals. Georgia versus Ohio State. We saw these teams match up in the CFP a couple years ago. Who's playing for the Natty?
Give me an upset. Give me the dogs.
Okay.
Kirby Smart finds a way to crack this Matt Patricia-led defense.
All right, you're gonna knock off the defending national champs. Georgia's the last team.
Yeah,
Georgia's the last team to win back-to-back Natties. Okay, so in the other semifinal, Texas A&M and Indiana. Who's playing for the national championship between those two schools?
This was a tough one, Hakeem. This was a tough one. I'm going to piss somebody off right here, but I got to do it. Give me the Aggies. I like this defense against Fernando Mendoza and Indiana's offense. They have not had to block a defensive line like Cassius Howe and this Texas A&M offensive line. They haven't had to play a quarterback that has the explosive playmaking capability that Marcel Reed has at any given moment. I don't care who Indiana's played against. And they've got a run game to complement it. And I got to give a shout out to Tommy Moffitt, the strength coordinator at Texas A&M. We saw versus South Carolina that he has built this team to be able to fight for 4 quarters. I think they just out-battle Indiana in a close one.
All right, now for the national championship, an all-SEC matchup, Georgia against Texas A&M. Who's winning it all in Miami?
It's Kirby Smart's time. He's returning to glory. The Dogs, they put Marcel Reed in a box. They firm up against Cassius Howe in this pass rush for Texas A&M, and they just find a way to win. It's going to be an SEC juggernaut matchup for a national championship, and Georgia pulls it out because they've been there before.
But you can say that that Georgia lost to Alabama. That will be your signature moment, that the national champions were Georgia. But you can say your Tide beat them during the regular season. Georgia, your national champion, according to Damian Harris. That was fun. I love doing the bracket breakdown. Damian Harris, 2-time national champion, here with us on CBS Sports HQ. Damian, appreciate you. And here's a look at the odds to win the national championship. He likes Georgia, plus 1,000. Of course, the favorite to run it back is Ohio State at plus 190, followed by Indiana, Texas A&M, and Notre Dame. Last school to win back-to-back natties, Georgia, in 2021. and 2022.